This whole presentation will be centered around the challenges that adults face when returning to higher education, continuing education, or job training in the skills they need for their career paths. The reason that this brought interest to me is because I look around and I've talked to a lot of people and I ask them, well, why or why not? Why do you pursue the education that you need? Or why do you shy away from it? And I've found that quite literally, many people have such a variety of reasons as to why they have attempted it, why they are scared of going back to it, or why it really just draws simply no interest to them. With answers in such a variety, I was very curious as to a deep dive into this and finding out a little bit more. So let's get going. The first question that usually comes up when we talk about more education people, continuing education, job training is, well, why does it matter? We get our high school diplomas, our GEDs, some people move on to trades or get a bachelor's degree. Well, why more than that? It really comes down to being lifelong learners, knowing that just stopping with one degree or one piece of information really isn't ever enough. We're always learning in what we do and how we function as people. So adult education really can help enhance our society and our job performance, whether we realize it now or we see the dividends pay out over time. Both are really important as we look at how we can help our career paths grow. When beginning research and looking into the reasons why, or the challenges for adult education, I came across three major areas that were the biggest factors: time, cost, and motivation. If we take a step back and let's look at cost first, this chart here shows you simply the growth and the expansion of how higher education has been extremely expensive to try to achieve. Over 3 decades, we nearly have a 100% increase in cost for public schools and four-year universities. That's crazy, especially when we think about the fact that minimum wage job growth has not kept up even when we talk about the housing market and being able to afford homes and places for people to live with their families. So the thought that we can't even afford housing and the food we need, it's crazy, especially when we think about the fact that minimum wage job growth has not kept up even when we talk about the housing market and being able to afford homes and places for people to live with their families. So the thought that we can't even afford housing and the food we need. Next chart I found very interesting, but to start, I'd like to stress where it came from as a little of the background. So there was a study done out in Saudi Arabia, and the whole focus of the study was all about motivation for adults returning to higher education. And what you see in this chart is that there were 5 groupings, and people had to order them 1 through 5 as to what they felt was the biggest reason or motivation that they went back to higher education for. Well, this one had religious as like the top reason. So why I find that interesting is, again, in different countries in the world, religion can be a driving factor for many of the things that help the country function or help bring communities together. And I state Saudi Arabia because that is part of their culture, with such a strong family connection into that religion. In the close second place I thought was interesting, which was very statistically significant, was all about the cognitive development. People wanting to go back, knowing they could expand on what their knowledge was. And I thought that was a really interesting second place because honestly, when starting the research, I was thinking that that might have been one of the bigger factors, other than the fact that you think when you get more education, more training, more money comes, or more promotions. It was actually really assuring to see that people wanted just to expand their knowledge base and what they're capable of doing. This other chart here that I found extremely interesting showed the different age ranges of when people felt like that's when they wanted to get more higher education. The biggest grouping that you're going to see here is ages 30 to 40, which actually does make the most sense. When we're in our 20s and our bodies and our brains finish developing through puberty, we're sort of like getting through that stage, finishing up bachelor's degrees or trainings and trying to just get into the workforce. In closing, what I'm looking to do with this paper is to uncover as much as I can about the information about why adults struggle to go back to learning for their own benefit. Whether they're being forced into it through their jobs why they're not finding motivation, and then also, if they get back into it, why they fall out of it, because that's especially important too. Yes, it might be great that we can increase rates of how many adults go back for more, but it's also interesting and statistically important to know why people might drop out. Why would they stop? Why would they give up if they've started something that could help them? What are the most important reasons and how these can all develop to help us? While we look at these different things from time to cost to motivation, I hope to find developing trends that can help in publishing a paper to help others understand. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you learned a little bit something about the paper and the research that I'm doing. Have a great day.